Hey guys, Joshua Zimmerman here for another episode of the Recruiting Corner. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys wanting to learn more about the recruiting process. Hopefully we can help. So this week we're going to talk about the financial obligations of college. For parents, I know some of you might be struggling figuring out how you're going to pay for school. For student athletes, you might be in the same boat. Are you going to get a scholarship? Are you not going to get a scholarship? The questions are pretty daunting. And so we want to definitely try to help you out, help you understand a few things. So basically, I want to start with a story from my past. I was or had the ability to be a scholarship athlete. Being a football player, I had some scholarship thrown my way. But I definitely was looking at college from a financial aspect. And I want you guys to do the same because it could sway your decisions about certain schools. It's never fun coming out of undergrad with $100,000 in debt. I can promise you that. So I know many people that are in that situation right now and it's not good. So think about what your financial obligations are gonna be. For me personally, when I was looking at school, I had a private school football program, Division I AA, offer me some scholarship opportunities. They weren't allowed to necessarily offer athletic scholarships. So it was academic financial aid or whatever they want. Some Division I A schools are not allowed to offer athletic scholarships. And their tuition was, at that point, it was $23,000 a year to go to that school. I didn't have $23,000 a year. They were gonna offer me a scholarship package that was gonna give me about $14,000 a year. So I understood that I was gonna have to pay the difference. And I wasn't necessarily comfortable coming out of school, what at that point would have been almost $40,000 in debt at the end of 4 years. That wasn't a choice I was ready to make. So I passed on that, but I thought of it in that sense because although I could have gotten a scholarship that would have made out most of the difference, it wasn't gonna make up the entire difference. And at that point in time, I just wasn't really comfortable. So I ended up at a different school that I was able to get money at, and that story is that story. But here's the situation. I actually ended up taking out loans still. And I learned a lot about the loan process at the latter end of the point when I was sending out or taking out loans. Basically, if you take out loans from the federal government through what would be FAFSA, and if you look up FAFSA, you can just type in FAFSA and it'll take you to their website. And that's basically the form that you're gonna have to fill out to get financial aid. And you're gonna understand that their loans come in small chunks. Each loan is different. So it could be a loan for $100, it could be a loan for $3,000, it could be a loan for $5,000, just depends. But each loan is different. And at the point you take out the loan, you actually start accumulating what's called capitalized interest. Well, you're starting to accumulate interest, it turns into capitalized interest. So basically, the first time I took out a loan, which was in 2003, I started accumulating interest on that particular loan. And then that was the first semester, 2003. When I took out another loan in the second semester, which would be the spring of 2004, I started accumulating that interest on that loan and so on and so forth until the day I graduated. And then when I graduated, I was handed a piece of paper that said, you know, congratulations on your graduation. You now owe us money, signed the federal government. And I basically found out that on top of the loans that I took out, I ended up owing the government an extra $1,800 in capitalized interest. Basically, all the interest had accumulated over all the loans, over all the years I was in college, and they ended up just piling that on top of that loan, or those accumulation of loans, and then I owe that as well. So keep that in mind when you're taking out loans, that you actually owe interest on them the day you take them out. And so if you're looking at stretching it out over a 4-year, 5-year period, whatever it is, it's going to add up. So just think about that. And then think about the fact also, how much loans are you going to have to take out, even if you get a scholarship? For those of you that play football, basketball, women's tennis, gymnastics, stuff like that, you're not gonna have to worry about as much loans as some of the other sports because those are what are called full scholarship sports, or what we call head count sports. Basically, you're gonna go in and everything's gonna get taken care of outside of any extra expenses that you wanna have. So if you want a really nice car or something like that, then there might be loans associated with that. But for the most part, your education is taken care of. Now, if you play soccer, if you're track, if you're a rower, or you want to swim and dive or anything else like that, then it's a little different. You're in what's called an equivalency sport, Those basically mean that it's mostly partial scholarships, your baseball, your softball, stuff like that. For the most part, you're probably not likely to get a full scholarship, which means that you may be offered something like 75%, 25%, 50%. The coaches will all work out the details with you if they're interested in offering you a scholarship. But for the most part, you're going to get partial scholarships, which means somebody, you or your parents or a rich uncle or somebody, is going to have to make up that other percentage. Now, if you think about the math, you take something like University of Miami down in Florida. Last time I looked at their tuition, it was somewhere around $28,000 a year. That's a lot of money. That's a private school, but it's a lot of money. If you're offered a partial scholarship, maybe they say, you know what, I want to give you a 50% scholarship, and you're able to then get that scholarship, you're still responsible for 50% of that tuition yearly, which means that that's quite a bit of money that racks up. Same thing with something like Penn State. Penn State's all over the news. We want to make sure that you understand that I believe Penn State's in-state tuition is somewhere around $30,000 a year. That's a lot of money. It's one of the most expensive public institutions in the entire country. If you're offered, again, 50% scholarship at $30,000 a year, you still have to come up with $15,000 a year to be able to go to that school. Over time, that's $60,000 extra that wasn't paid for by the school, by the state, whatever it is, that comes out of your pocket. So technically you just got what would be a $120,000 education for 50% off. You still have to come up with that 50%. That's still a lot of money. So understand financial obligations are important. And the other deal is that you have to understand that coaches are going to make sure that they ask you these questions. One of the big questions coaches ask is, what can you afford to pay for a college education? Again, it's not the football coaches. It's not your basketball coaches, at least football coaches in D1. It's not your full head count sports, your full scholarship sports that are asking these questions. It is your equivalency sport, percentage scholarship sports coaches that are trying to figure out how many players they can get with the allotted scholarships they have for that particular year. So they want to know, if you can afford to pay for 80% of your tuition, they may be able to get away with giving you a 20% scholarship. And of course, they'll try to help you out with academic money and such. But for the most part, they're going to want to know, and you have to be honest with them about what you can afford to pay for. All right? So definitely understand the financial obligations. You are going to be responsible for stuff outside of what that scholarship covers, and you may not want to have to pay back what is $200, $300, $400 a month. Some of you may be $1,000 a month for 10 years of your life. So definitely just understand that. Could be longer. It could be 15, could be 30, depends on what type of loans you guys take out. So the question of the week, we're jumping back to Facebook this week. A gentleman wrote in, how do I get a college coach to find me? Well, it's an interesting question. It's a tricky question depending on where you live. If you live in the States, you have to attend camps. So that's going to be the biggest thing. Coaches use camps as a huge, huge recruiting tool. Now, they're not just going to recruit you because you showed up. You have to do some work ahead of time and let them know who you are. You want them to have a resume. You want them to have your video. You want to have a couple, maybe email or phone conversations before you show up to this camp. But a camp is a great way for a coach to find you. The other thing is start communicating with them. If you live somewhere in the middle of Wyoming and you want to play basketball, then you need to let those basketball coaches in that area or in the area that you are interested in playing know that you're there. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to travel to the middle of Wyoming to come see you, but they could invite you to a camp to where they could see you there. And depending on what type of recruiting budget that particular program has, they could travel, they couldn't travel, but it's important that you get in contact with them so that they can see you. You likely will have to travel to them for the most part. You can also find out what types of tournaments or showcases that they recruit from. You can invite them to your games, but for the most part, you have to reach out to them. Don't sit at home thinking because you're a great athlete and your parents tell you that you're a great athlete, that these coaches are just going to show up on your front door and hand you a piece of paper that says you're the greatest, I want you as a scholarship. It's not going to happen. You have to do the work. So to get coaches to find you, you have to find them. That's all we have. Guys, tune in next week. Thanks so much for tuning in this week, and have a great one.